So, welcome to our video session discussing unacceptable behaviours. For those who don't know me, my name's Odette Hay and I'm one of the wellbeing caseworkers, and I work under the Standing Together initiative within Student Support Services here at the university. So today we have Kyle and Harriet joining us from my team. Thank you both for joining us. If you wouldn't mind just kind of introducing yourself, I know I've done a little introduction, but if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your role. Shall we start with you, Harriet?
Yeah, no worries. So my name's Harriet Smales. I'm the Wellbeing Case Manager and Standing Together lead, both also in Student Support Services, working with Kyle and Odette. Majority of my role involves trying to tackle unacceptable behaviours and support students affected. So yeah, that's me. Over to Kyle.
Oh, cheers, Harriet. So my name is Kyle. I'm a wellbeing caseworker here in the Standing Together team, based in Student Support Services at the university. My role is to, support students who've been victims of unacceptable behaviours, liaise with other departments, give them that all-round holistic support through whatever they're going through. And also recently I've been involved a lot in the training. So we're currently rolling out an online bystander training for all first years, which is really exciting. So I've been heavily involved in that in the past couple of weeks as well. Couple of months even. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So in this short audio, we thought it'd be interesting to open up a discussion around behaviours. So we know that people experience behaviours in different ways, and we also know that harassment, discrimination, bullying and abuse are more kind of commonplace than some may like to admit. And we know that behaviours are not always overt and can often be nuanced in the form of subtle, unacceptable behaviours or comments. So our intention today is to get people thinking about different types of behaviours and the kind of impact that this can have. But before we get into the discussions, I thought we would have a bit of fun with a Guess the Lingo quiz. So every area has its own kind of unique ways. And being brought up in Leicester, I know that there's some words that might leave people thinking, what on earth are you talking about? So if I start with some of the Leicester lingo, and you can have a guess at what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
So if I said, on your bike, mate, what do you think that would mean? Kyle?
How do you go on? See you later in a bit. On your bike, get out of here.
Get out of here. Any guesses, Harriet?
Yeah, I was thinking it was kind of more like go away, leave kind of thing rather than like goodbye. I think.
Yeah. I suppose you both kind of got the gist of it, really. So on your bike, mate, means like, what a load of rubbish.
Oh.
Yeah, like on your bike, mate. Like if someone was to say, actually, I don't really have an example, but it's kind of a useless term, to be fair. But yeah, it basically means that is a load of rubbish.
Yeah, I like it. I guess it's like, get out of here.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That kind of thing.
I've never heard it used in that context, though.
Yeah. It is a funny one. Like I do hear people in Leicester saying it, probably not of recent, but people definitely still use that term, I think. So, Kyle, have you got any lingo that you want to share?
Yeah, I do. So, being from Birmingham originally, I couldn't remember any lingo. So I just went online and searched about Birmingham lingo, and I found loads that kind of gave me like maybe a bit nostalgic because I remember hearing a lot of these when I was younger. The one I used to use a lot when I was younger was when you do a gambol.
When you do a gambol.
Gambol.
Yeah.
Sounds like a dish, like a culinary dish.
No, nothing to do with food.
When you do a gambol. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start with that.
Some like physical action.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, then that rang a bell. Is it like a cartwheel?
It's kind of like a car. It's basically a forward roll.
Yeah.
Oh, well done, Harriet.
Yeah,
oh my
that's
gosh.
good.
Oh, that's tapped into something from like primary school. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know
what I'm
why.
saying. When I read the list, I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow, I know these since I was a kid. Gambol.
Gamble. No, I
Yeah.
literally would never have guessed that.
That is
Oh,
funny.
that's a good one. What about you, Harriet?
So I also did a bit of a Google because I was like, I think there's more that I could be benefiting from that
Yeah.
I can't remember. So if you were to mash a cup of tea, do you know what that means?
Mash a cup of tea.
Yeah, so the mash bit. What does the mash mean in that?
To brew it?
I'm guessing make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the brewing
Oh,
action. So if you
brew.
see
Oh,
it, say you
wow.
like if you say yeah, so if you say your tea is mashing, it means it's like brewing. My
I have
granddad
heard that
say
before.
it, but I've not heard many people. But then apparently it's a thing that people do and people say. So you mash a cup of tea,
I've
which
never
just
heard that.
sounds gross.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, but there we go,
Yeah.
Nottingham.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
lovely.
Thank you both. Yeah, it's so interesting to see how people may interpret things in different ways, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it might not be just the kind of regional lingo that we use, but perhaps the opinions we hold and the actions we take.
Mm.
So I think this brings us nicely onto our main session. So as I said, we obviously work in a kind of professional capacity, but for the purpose of this discussion, if you could kind of share your personal views and experiences, if you're happy to and obviously comfortable with that, I think it would just be really helpful to kind of really open up those discussions, really. So as I mentioned, we want to encourage people to think about the impact of negative attitudes and beliefs and microaggressions and how they can lead to kind of damaging acts of discrimination and hate. So we've adapted this Where Do You Draw the Line activity, which was originally created by the University of Manchester to explore the potential impact of these behaviours and to encourage that thinking about bystander intervention. So on the screen, you should all be able to see a sliding scale, and the scale starts with harmless, then moves on to awkward, and then harsh, out of order, upsetting, offensive, and at the far end is dangerous. So I'm going to present a number of scenarios, and if you could just share whether you would take any action in the scenario, where you would draw the line, if at all. So kind of how would you interpret the behaviour using the scale on the screen, and the ones I've just mentioned, and finally where you would intervene if you would at all. So you're not obviously going to be judged by your responses. We obviously recognise that we all have different perspectives and we act according to how comfortable we may or may not feel. And it can also be dependent on our own kind of personal experiences. So before I kind of go through the scenarios, I just wanted to mention that we've used, instead of using names, we've decided to use fruits to ensure kind of gender neutrality. And so you don't kind of associate a particular behaviour with someone that you know. So hopefully you'll be able to use this as a visual kind of imagery. Tend to use like lemon and grape. And I think lime may make an appearance somewhere as well. But I'm not sure in terms of the scenarios that we're going to talk about today. But yeah, just to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
So, okay. Any questions before I
Nope.
mention the first
Sounds
scenario?
good.
Okay. So, scenario number one then. You're on the train heading home and you overhear a conversation with two passengers who are having small talk. One of the passengers, asks the other where they're from, and the other passenger informs them that they're from Leicester. The passenger then replies, "No, where are you really from?"
These two don't know each other.
So I think presuming that they do know each other
They do.
and maybe
Yeah.
that they're colleagues.
Okay.
I guess as a bystander, like you wouldn't know that, would you?
No.
Maybe. Or maybe you would, I guess, if they're talking about like a work meeting or whatever, maybe.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Oh, do you think that changes it, Kyle? Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking about like, like body language and kind of how they're communicating. I suppose you kind of know how well they know each other. And as you said, if they're speaking about work-related stuff, you kind of guess they are colleagues. So I suppose if you're hearing them, in this example, if you're hearing them talking about work stuff and then it goes on to obviously a bit more stuff away from work, maybe more personal, and then someone brings that up or asks that question, then I'd probably put it in the maybe awkward, maybe out of order. Yeah, one of the two. Well, it will start as awkward, obviously, and yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because obviously you can't see the body language. I think I'd rate it in the same position though, to be honest, like you say, Kyle.
Yeah.
I think I would find it awkward personally, and I think I would rate the situation as not okay. I'm going off scale, but maybe not okay, out of order, I guess, along the same kind of lines. But I guess I'd have to see. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Sorry, Harry. I suppose as well, I was going to say that if you can, like, if you're in the eye line of the person who's, on the receiving end of that question, you can kind of give a, like we say in the bystander, just like a look.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
say, I heard that and that didn't sit right. And I can understand why you wouldn't feel comfortable, answering that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely
to
awkward.
the out of order.
It's exactly. I think it would be out of order, but I don't know. I'm just thinking, would my perception of it change if the other person, you could tell like by their body language that they felt okay with it?
That's what I was going to say.
Might feel okay with it, might they?
That's what I was going to say. I think I would interpret it as what we've discussed, but in terms of how I would maybe take responsibility and then take action, I think that would absolutely be dependent on the impact that it's had, and whether you can kind of judge that in the person, and like you said, Odette, kind of how it lands. I know also guess kind of where I'm sitting in relation to them, and like how long I'm on the train for, like all of these factors, I guess, would be running through my mind.
Yeah, there's so many different factors, isn't there?
Yeah.
Okay. So, thanks for that one. We're going to move on to the second scenario. So, you're sat in the Students' Union with Lemon and Grape having lunch. Lemon appears to be quieter than normal, so Grape asks Lemon if everything is okay. Lemon responds, "I'm fine, just tired, that's all." Grape rolls their eyes and says, "Well, you ought to cheer up a bit and stop looking so depressed." Lemon is surprised by this response and reactively spills their drink. Grape laughs and calls Lemon a retard. Grape adds, "The university is getting way too soft on people who claim to be depressed. We all get a little stressed sometimes."
Oh, lots to unpack there.
I was just going to say that's quite loaded, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a build-up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it builds up all the way to potentially dangerous, like just because of the impact that those kind of comments can have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think what I was going to say. Yeah, I think at the very basic level, it's offensive to that individual or the individuals around. But like you said, the wider impact on other people definitely could be dangerous. Yeah.
I just think it's so dismissive, isn't it? Like, who was it? Lemon or Grape? Sorry.
I think Grape was the one that said comments, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's it. So I think maybe Lemon, by saying to Grape that, I'm feeling depressed or I'm not feeling too good, that might have been an opening for them to say, oh, what about, have you thought about any support? Or it might be something that they've never spoken about before. So I just think it's so dismissive. It's definitely dangerous as well. And as you said, people around them could potentially be offended by their comments as well.
Yeah, and I think it goes back, like even just the first comment around or something about, oh, why are you looking so depressed, or something like that. It goes back to like that trivialization of language around mental ill health and people using those clinical terms when they don't actually mean it. It's when then people say, oh, I have depression, that people maybe aren't taking it seriously because they use it in ways that they don't actually mean. But I guess I'm kind of also questioning why Grape bothered asking in the first place, because it's kind of like, if you don't want to know the answer, like
exactly. Yeah, definitely. Okay.
I suppose then you'd probably, if you want to like draw the line anywhere, it'd probably be on that first comment. Just because it is kind of an escalation, isn't it, of comments from Grape. And Lemon hasn't done anything. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like Grape just coming out with stuff. So
you would draw the line out, well, you ought to cheer up and stop looking so depressed.
Yeah, because I think you never know what Lemon could be going through. So to kind of, it's like you said earlier, that if you're just dismissing potentially you know, an issue, a real issue that Lemon has, like just saying it in a jokey way, then that is that can have like detrimental effects, for Lemon.
Definitely. So would any of you, sorry, Harriet.
No, I was just going to say, I was just going to actually ask or add as well, like I would agree that it's offensive at that first comment, but I don't know what I would say.
Yeah.
Or like if I was a random bystander who was walking past, I'll be honest, and I wish I would say something, but I don't think I would, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the thing, because you see a dynamic of a group, and then you think, oh, they're really good friends, so the group's gonna communicate with each other differently to how they would other people. So if you hear any comments, you usually think to yourself, oh, they're friends. This is the kind of conversations, or this is the kind of language they use.
Yeah.
The passing bystander, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's hard though, isn't it? Because it still doesn't make it okay. I guess you could argue that because it's a group dynamic, you've got more opportunity to kind of change views and change language and change perceptions and stuff if you kind of challenge a group's behavior rather than individuals. That kind of, in theory, that should make me want to take responsibility more. But I think what would naturally happen is kind of that perception of it that you gave, Kyle, around, well, that's their business almost.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
It's so hard. Kind of, I want to be able to take responsibility in the right way, in quotes, but I don't think I would at that stage. If I was in their friendship group, I think it would be different, actually.
Yeah. I think that changes it a little bit, doesn't it? Because I'm with you, Javier. I don't think as a passerby I would say anything at that stage, and I think I'd probably be quite apprehensive in saying something because you don't know what the backlash may be. You never know that what someone in the group could say, actually, like, I didn't mean any offense by it, or not, like that's okay, but even still, I think we've got to be mindful of what the reaction may be to your comments.
You just don't know how people are going to react.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I think actually thinking about it, I think I would, if I knew the people, I'd have to know the people. I'd think about delayed action in this one in particular. So again, depending on who I knew and who I was going to have a conversation with or going to bump into again, maybe to say to either Grape, I heard you saying some words, because it wasn't just the first comment, it was the other comments as well. I heard you saying some things that were inappropriate, not okay, and or going up to a Lemon and saying, I hope you're all right, let me know if you need anything, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's where I think I would come to in my analysis.
I think sometimes,
but then if I didn't know them.
Yeah, I think exactly. I think it changes as to whether you know the people within the situation or not. Because if they were just kind of random people that you didn't know, I think it's so difficult then to impose on a conversation or even have that delayed kind of conversation.
You'd have to probably to try and get that person alone, you know, just to kind of, if you can, just away from the group. So then if you are fearing any type of backlash or response, you can kind of do it with a bit more, you know, with a bit more of your own safety in mind, you could say, just so you know you're not feeling you know, that you're gonna get any type of backlash.
Yeah.
I think I'd be sorry. Yeah. I think I'd be more inclined to maybe kind of approach Lemon if I saw that, you know, as you say, Kyle, that they were on their own at some point and possibly felt, I could see that they were upset. I think I'd be more inclined to approach them and ask them if they were okay, and then maybe open up that discussion about, you know, what was said and how they feel about it, and reiterate, actually, that's not okay for Grape to be saying things like that.
Yeah. It's hard. There are like endless opportunities to the scenario, because I guess I've been picturing it as I'm a staff member walking through the Students' Union and these are students. And whether that would change anything, and like whether it would change anything if they were staff, whether it would change anything if I were also a student. So I don't know. It's difficult. I guess if they were staff, I'd have potentially more opportunity to see them again and make a comment, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I would feel like it was more necessary if they were staff to question their terminology, I guess. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, so many different things. I think it definitely does change whether you're maybe a staff member or another student. I think I was picturing myself as another student.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm thinking maybe as a student it might be easier to even a delayed reaction, or I don't know, more so maybe a delayed reaction as a student. I think as a staff member, perhaps you're in a certain position with, you know, with your blue lanyard to kind of like, you know, what I've heard is just, you know, that, as you said, Harriet, just kind of call them up on the terminology used. So maybe depending on the position you're in, it you know, defines where you step in at what point, maybe.
Yeah. It kind of introduces that power imbalance if you're a staff member and they're students, which, like delegated action, for example, could escalate it unnecessarily. Whereas if you were a student and they were students, that power imbalance wouldn't necessarily be there. Therefore, there'd be less chance of escalation. Maybe I don't.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So interesting. Okay, so let's move on to the final scenario. Unless anyone has any final comments on that scenario. No. Okay, so the final scenario then is you're in a meeting and you notice that your manager continues to mispronounce a colleague's name after they've corrected them on a number of occasions.
Oh, short and sweet.
Yeah.
And of course, we don't mean any manager in particular, of course.
No, we don't. Of course not.
Of course.
And I'm sure the managers that we know wouldn't. Just for the purpose of this scenario, this exercise.
For the benefit of the tape, we are not making any allegations any individuals.
Oh gosh.
It would definitely be awkward, you know, for everyone else in the meeting, because in your head you'd be like, they've already corrected you. So why are you still saying it wrong?
Yeah. I think there should at least be a definite awkward feeling in the room. You'd hope, with everyone else, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can imagine it's very upsetting. Like it would be very upsetting.
Yeah, definitely.
For that individual, not necessarily for the bystanders, unless the bystanders are kind of identifying with that. Maybe it's happened to them before as well.
Yeah, I think it could be borderline offensive, to be honest. If I was in that situation, I'd be thinking, well, you know, if I've kind of corrected you 3 or 4 times, then I think I would feel that you're not really acknowledging or making an effort to pronounce my name in the right way.
Yeah. Doesn't really validate your position in that group, does it? It kind of, yeah, like you say, it kind of means that there's no effort being put into not even just making sure you're welcome, like just making sure you're treated
so it's like equal as well.
Yeah, just human decency.
That's it, exactly.
Because I've had people, like, especially at school, people have like mispronounced my names, you know, like supply teachers, but that would be like the first time. But I can imagine if it kept happening again in that situation as well, I think you almost kind of just get tired of constantly trying to correct them. And even subconsciously you might be thinking, or you might be looking to maybe your colleagues to just kind of step in at some point, because they can also sense that, you know, this is you know, getting a bit unacceptable now, really. And also as well, like, you'd also start to think like, what's the manager's, like, does he have a hidden motive? Did they have a hidden motive or something? Like, if I've corrected them more than once, why are they still pronouncing it wrong? Like, have I done something wrong? Which doesn't help with the dynamic as well, does it? And as you say, Harry, it doesn't make you feel welcomed at all.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's a really interesting point around kind of looking to others to, I guess, come in for you and basing that on your own experience a little bit, because it kind of links to what we say in the bystander session around if bystanders have had a personal experience of what they are seeing happening, they're more likely to take responsibility for stepping in. And I don't know whether that, I don't think that necessarily should be part of the consideration for the other bystanders to be like, oh, someone else will deal with it because they know what it feels like, kind of thing. But I think that might be going on in some people's heads potentially.
Definitely. I mean, I've had this on a number of occasions and I still get it now. And it's so frustrating because I think to myself, come on, like, Odette is I think it's not a difficult name to pronounce, but even if it's a name that you've not heard of before, then at least try and make some effort to ensure that you're pronouncing it right. And there's no harm in asking the person, you know, sorry, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I was just thinking that as well.
Do you know what I mean? Just to make sure, just to clarify, and, you know, it makes the person feel, oh, actually, at least you're trying, and at least you're asking the question. But I don't think there's any excuse for continuing to mispronounce somebody's name, really. And I think within a group setting, so within a team meeting or whatever it is, it can be very embarrassing for the other person as well.
And I think going off that, I think potentially that's maybe how I would address it from a bystander perspective, just maybe coming in and saying to the individual whose name keeps getting pronounced wrong in front of everyone, sorry, is it pronounced like this? Or just so, like, it's maybe not necessarily directly kind of challenging the manager, but kind of for the group, for the benefit of the group, let's just clarify. But then I guess if that person has already corrected the manager directly several times before, would that work? Would the manager even pick up on that? Would it be too subtle? But I think that would be probably my automatic kind of feeling around it.
I like that. I really like that, actually, because it really kind of acknowledges that you've realised that they keep mispronouncing the name, and it shows that you're in support of that person as well, whilst also hopefully raising awareness to the manager that actually this is not okay and you continue to mispronounce the name.
It's like an indirect way of telling the manager, isn't it? You know, without actively saying to the manager, no, they've already said 3 or 4 times it's this. You keep saying it like that, because then that doesn't really help with the, you know, the whole awkwardness of that situation as well. Just adds to it.
And I guess that's it's asking a question as well may also be a good idea, because I know, like, I doubt myself sometimes if you hear someone saying it and if they're in a position of authority, like, the natural response is to maybe think you're wrong potentially. I think it's asking a question maybe is a good way of kind of leveling things off with everyone that's there, and also not necessarily saying you're wrong, I'm right, but saying, actually, shall we all just gather a bit more information? I think that could work in other scenarios as well, where you don't necessarily know what's going on. That shouldn't necessarily stop you from saying something, but maybe just change what you were going to say into a question.
Yeah, I like that.
But then, yeah, I guess you do want to kind of go in with authority as well. And I guess if I were more comfortable to do that, I think I'd like to think I could do that. But I think I would go in with a question, to be honest.
Yeah. I think in some situations, I think in this situation, especially if it's a manager or somebody in a senior position, I think it, as you say, Javier, I think it can always be quite difficult to maybe challenge them about certain situations or comments. So I think using that questioning approach may work better. I think for me personally, I think I'd feel more comfortable using that approach as well. So thanks for sharing that. I like that one.
No, that's no worries.
Yeah.
Again, though, that like this is through kind of thinking about it and talking about it. I don't know if that necessarily would have been my response in the moment, and I guess that had to be that kind of response would have to be timed very well, because you couldn't then 5 minutes later go, oh, sorry, after you'd kind of considered it in your head and had this conversation in your head.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I've come to that through thinking, not necessarily instinct. But then hopefully, like, if this were to happen in the future, then I would have that in my back pocket to kind of pull out.
I was just going to say exactly. And I think that's absolutely fine, isn't it? Because, you know, and this is why we're having these kind of conversations, because it does make us think about things and reflect on certain situations. So as you say, you might not use that at the time or think about it, but it kind of prepares you and gives you those tools for the next time if it were to happen again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, guys. That was really interesting.
Thank you.
So this brings us to the end of our session. Unless anyone else has any comments. No? Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Real. So I hope you've enjoyed the session today. I think personally it's been really good to kind of have these conversations and highlight the link between kind of perceived harmless insinuations and those kind of subtle unacceptable behaviours that sometimes can be accepted as, like, you know, the kind of cultural norm. So yeah, thanks for that. Feel free to share this episode with other people and students who you might think will be interested in getting involved. And if there are no further comments, we'll leave it there for now.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No worries.